I can't believe Dad never told me how useless you've been all these years, Lucas said during my husband's funeral dinner. I didn't answer. I only lowered the silverware onto the polished oak table before anyone could see how badly my hand was shaking. Rachel sat across from me with that careful little smile of hers, the kind a woman wears when she wants everyone to think she is being polite. My son still wouldn't look directly at me. I'm glad you're here. Follow my story until the end, and tell me where you're watching from. Because that dinner was the first night I realized my family had already started removing me from my own life. The dining room smelled of roasted turkey, coffee gone cold in untouched mugs, and funeral lilies beginning to wilt beside David's framed photograph on the mantel. He had been gone 7 days. 7 days since I stood beside his grave while November wind pushed against my black coat, and people whispered things like, "She's strong, and she'll manage somehow," as if strength could replace a husband of 42 years. Lucas adjusted his cufflinks and leaned back in his chair. "You barely handled things when Dad was alive," he said. "Now everything's going to fall apart." One of David's cousins coughed awkwardly. Someone else stared down at their mashed potatoes. No one defended me. That silence hurt more than Lucas's words. Rachel finally spoke softly. "Lucas." But she didn't sound shocked. She sounded cautious, like a woman reminding someone not to reveal too much too quickly. Lucas exhaled through his nose. "What?" "We're all thinking it." I looked toward David's photograph. His reading glasses still rested beside the frame because I hadn't found the strength to move them yet. That morning, I had walked into our bedroom and reached toward his side of the bed before remembering all over again that it was empty. Empty forever. The funeral casserole dishes still crowded my refrigerator. Condensation clung to plastic wrap. Half the flowers people sent were already browning around the edges. The house looked like grief. "I'm going to make some coffee," I said quietly. I stood carefully because my knees had been aching since the funeral service. Rachel watched me cross the room. Not with concern. With attention. Like she was measuring something. The kitchen light buzzed faintly overhead while I filled the kettle. From the dining room, I heard Lucas speaking in a lower voice. "She can't stay here alone forever." Rachel murmured something I couldn't hear. Then Lucas said, "Dad should have handled this before he died." Before he died. Not before he passed. Not before we lost him. Before he died. The cruelty of that wording settled heavily inside my chest. I gripped the edge of the counter. For one terrible moment, I wondered if grief was distorting everything. Maybe Lucas was stressed. Maybe Rachel was uncomfortable. Maybe I was hearing rejection because I had spent the last week waking up every morning into the horror of being alone. Then Rachel entered the kitchen. "You should sit down," she said. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine." Her eyes drifted toward the stack of unopened hospital bills near the toaster. David's final ambulance ride. Specialists. Tests. I had not even looked at the totals yet. Rachel folded her arms gently. "Lucas worries about you." I almost laughed. Instead, I turned off the kettle before it screamed. "When your father-in-law was alive," I said carefully, "Lucas rarely called unless he needed something." Rachel's expression tightened for only a second. Then the smile returned. "Well, people get busy." Busy. I remembered sitting alone at my 68th birthday dinner 2 years earlier after Lucas texted that they were too overwhelmed to drive over. Later that night, I saw photos online of the two of them at a wine event downtown. I remembered Christmas mornings shortened because Rachel's family had important traditions. I remembered finding out through neighbors that Lucas and Rachel had spent a week in Colorado without mentioning the trip to me. At the time, I told myself not to be dramatic. Children grow up. Lives change. But standing in my kitchen while my daughter-in-law watched my dead husband's bills sitting unpaid beside me, I felt something colder beginning to form. Recognition. The coffee finished brewing. I carried the tray back carefully. Lucas was scrolling through his phone. Rachel had moved David's photograph slightly to make room for her purse. I stared at it. Just for a second. She noticed. "Oh," she said quickly, moving the frame back. "Sorry." But she didn't sound sorry. She sounded irritated that I noticed. The evening dragged forward. People left one by one. Coats disappeared from hooks. Car doors shut outside. Eventually only Lucas and Rachel remained. Lucas stood near the mantel. "You should think about downsizing," he said casually. I blinked. "What?" "This house is huge, Mom. Your father and I bought this house before you started kindergarten." "I know." He shoved his hands into his pockets. "You can barely keep up with it now." The words landed harder than he realized. Because 3 months earlier, I had fallen while carrying laundry downstairs. Rachel had been the one to insist on taking me to urgent care. Afterward, I overheard her whispering to Lucas in the hallway, "She's getting frail." At the time I convinced myself she was worried. Now I wasn't so sure. "I'm managing," I said. Lucas exchanged a glance with Rachel. That glance frightened me more than anything else that night. It was brief, practiced, shared. Rachel picked up her coat. "We just want what's best for you." People always said that right before taking something from you. After they left, the silence inside the house became unbearable. I walked room to room turning off lamps. David's recliner still faced the television. His slippers remained beside it. A half-finished crossword puzzle rested on the side table with his pen tucked neatly into the spine. I sat down in his chair and finally let myself cry. Not loudly, just quietly. The kind of crying older women learn to do after decades of surviving things nobody notices. Outside, headlights passed slowly across the living room wall. And for the first time since burying my husband, I felt afraid. Not of being alone, of being unwanted. The house sounded different after David died. Not quieter, hollow. Every room carried the strange echo of a life interrupted. The coffee maker no longer started at 6 in the morning because David had always been the first awake. The upstairs bathroom stayed dry until noon because no steam fogged the mirrors anymore. Even the staircase creaked differently without his weight crossing it every evening. For 42 years our routines had shaped this home. Now every silence reminded me I was the only one left inside it. I woke before dawn 3 days after the funeral dinner. The digital clock beside the bed read 4:17 a.m. For a moment, half asleep, I reached toward David's side of the mattress. Cold sheets. That realization still arrived like a bruise. I sat up slowly and wrapped my cardigan around myself. The bedroom smelled faintly of his aftershave because I still hadn't washed the flannel shirt hanging behind the bathroom door. I wasn't ready. Downstairs, the kitchen counters were cluttered with sympathy cards. Some remained unopened. I couldn't bear another handwritten message about what a wonderful man my husband had been. As if I needed strangers to explain the size of my loss. I brewed coffee and stood at the sink watching weak rain slide down the backyard fence. David used to complain about that fence every winter. "Another season and the whole thing's coming down," he would say. Then spring came and he repaired it himself instead of hiring someone. That was David. Quietly dependable. The kind of man who remembered anniversaries, fixed dripping faucets, and carried grocery bags even after his back started hurting. Lucas used to admire him. At least I thought he did. Around 9 that morning my phone buzzed. Rachel. Not Lucas. Rachel. I stared at the screen before answering. Helen. Her voice sounded unusually cheerful. "How are you holding up?" Holding up. As if grief were a shelf threatening to collapse. "I'm managing." "That's good." A pause. Then, "Lucas and I were talking last night. We think maybe you should let us help organize some things around the house." I looked slowly around the kitchen. David's medication bottles still sat beside the microwave. His favorite mug rested upside down on the drying rack. Nothing in this house was ready to be organized. "I don't think I'm ready for that." "Oh." Another pause. "Well, eventually you'll need help going through his paperwork." There it was again. Not concern. Direction. I pressed my fingers against the edge of the sink. "I'll handle it." Her tone cooled slightly. "We're only trying to make things easier." After we hung up, I stood motionless for several seconds. Then I noticed something strange. The filing cabinet in David's office was slightly open. I was certain I had closed it the night before. At first, I told myself grief made people forgetful. But when I walked into the office, several folders looked disturbed. Not dramatically. Just enough. A drawer slightly crooked. Papers shifted. One folder resting upside down. A cold feeling crept slowly through me. Lucas had stayed behind briefly after the funeral dinner, while Rachel carried dishes into the kitchen. I remembered hearing footsteps upstairs. At the time I assumed he needed the bathroom. Now I wasn't sure. I opened the cabinet fully. Property tax documents. Insurance forms. Mortgage records already paid off years ago. And one empty space where David's estate folder should have been. I stared at it. My pulse quickened. Then I saw the folder sitting on the desk. Open. Relief passed through me first. Then confusion. Because I had never placed it there. Inside were copies of David's retirement accounts, investment information, and house deed records. A yellow sticky note clung to the top page. Need to discuss transfer options. The handwriting wasn't David's. It was Rachel's. I sat down heavily in David's desk chair. The leather still carried the faint indentation of his shoulders. For several minutes I simply stared at that note. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe Rachel had written it during one of David's hospital stays. Maybe Lucas asked her to organize paperwork. Maybe. But deep down, another thought had already begun forming. They had been discussing this house before David even died. That afternoon, I drove to the grocery store because the refrigerator was nearly empty except for leftovers nobody wanted. The fluorescent lights inside the store hurt my eyes. I wandered slowly through the aisles pushing a cart with almost nothing inside it. Soup. Bread. There. Cat food for the neighbor's cat I occasionally watched. Checkout. I realized I had forgotten my reading glasses. The young cashier smiled patiently while I squinted at prices. I suddenly felt very old. Very alone. Back home, I carried the groceries inside one bag at a time because my wrists hurt. Halfway through unloading them, I noticed muddy footprints near the back hallway. Large footprints. Men's shoes. Not mine. Not recent enough to be from paramedics. My stomach tightened. Lucas had a key. That night I barely slept. Around midnight I walked downstairs and sat at the dining table in darkness. The same table where Lucas called me useless. Moonlight spilled faintly across the wood. I ran my fingers over scratches left by decades of family dinners. Homework sessions. Birthday cakes. Christmas mornings. I remembered Lucas at 8 years old crying because he dropped a glass of milk. David had laughed and cleaned it up while I kissed Lucas's forehead. We take care of each other in this house, David always said. The memory hurt so badly I had to close my eyes. Because somewhere along the way that stopped being true. And I still didn't know exactly when it happened. 2 weeks after David's funeral, my place at the table disappeared. Not permanently. Not officially. Just quietly enough that everyone could pretend it meant nothing. Lucas and Rachel invited me to Sunday dinner at their house. Rachel greeted me warmly at the door while balancing a casserole dish in her hands. Helen, you made it. Made it. As if arriving at my own son's home required special effort. Their dining room looked carefully staged. Quand le lit. Wine already poured. Soft music playing somewhere in the background. And at the table, my usual chair sat pushed against the far corner near the kitchen entrance. A high chair occupied the seat beside Lucas instead. My granddaughter Emma climbed into it happily while Rachel adjusted the straps. No one mentioned the change. That was the worst part. Humiliation inside families rarely arrives dramatically. It happens through little rearrangements everyone expects you to accept politely. I sat down slowly. From the corner seat, I could barely hear half the conversation. Lucas spent most of dinner discussing renovation ideas. Rachel showed pictures of modern kitchens on her phone. At first, I assumed they were talking about their own home. Then Lucas said, "The downstairs office could easily become another bedroom." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. That office was inside my house. David's office. Rachel noticed my expression immediately. "Oh," she said lightly. Lucas was just saying older homes have a lot of potential. Potential. Like my marriage had become a real estate opportunity. I set my fork down carefully. That office belonged to David. Silence settled briefly across the table. Lucas took a sip of wine. "I know, Mom." Then he changed the subject. Later that evening, while Rachel loaded the dishwasher, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen. "She noticed," Rachel murmured. "Well, eventually we'll have to tell her." "Not yet." I stood frozen in the hallway holding my purse. My chest tightened. When I entered the kitchen a moment later, both of them smiled too quickly. That night, I drove home through cold drizzle with both hands gripping the steering wheel harder than necessary. The windshield wipers squeaked every few seconds. At a red light, I suddenly realized I was crying. Not from anger. From exhaustion. I was tired of pretending not to notice things. Tired of explaining away discomfort. Tired of shrinking myself so other people wouldn't feel guilty. Back home, the porch light flickered weakly. David always meant to replace it. Inside, the house smelled stale because I had stopped cooking proper meals. One woman alone rarely needs a roast chicken. Or a full pie. I microwaved leftover soup and sat in silence while rain tapped against the windows. Then my phone buzzed. Lucas. I almost ignored it. Mom. His tone sounded overly casual. Did Dad ever update the will before he passed? The spoon froze in my hand. No, you're sure? Yes. A pause. We just need to understand where things stand. We. Always we now. Never Lucas alone. I stared across the kitchen toward the hallway where David used to stand every morning tying his tie before work. Why are you asking? Another pause. Because somebody has to think practically. Practical. That word again. It suddenly sounded dangerous. After we hung up, I walked upstairs and opened the cedar chest at the foot of our bed. Inside were decades of carefully folded memories. Old anniversary cards. Lucas's kindergarten drawings. David's handwritten letters from business trips years earlier. At the bottom sat an envelope addressed to me. Helen. Only my name. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside was a letter written in David's careful block handwriting. If you're reading this, sweetheart, I probably forgot to tell you where I hid the spare insurance documents again. I laughed softly despite myself. Then tears followed immediately after. Because that was David. Even his practical notes sounded loving. Near the bottom of the page, one sentence made me stop breathing for a moment. Don't let anyone pressure you after I'm gone. Take your time with everything. I read the line 3 times. Had he known? Had he noticed something before his heart attack? For the first time since the funeral, fear shifted into something sharper. Awareness. Because suddenly all the little moments began connecting. Rachel asking detailed questions during David's hospital stays. Lucas pushing conversations about future planning. The disturbed paperwork. The changed seat at dinner. The whispered conversations. And underneath all of it, a growing impatience. As if my grief were inconveniencing them. I folded David's letter carefully and pressed it against my chest. Then I whispered into the empty room. I'm trying, David. And for the first time in weeks, I stopped feeling helpless. I started paying attention. The following week, I began noticing things David had tried to protect me from while he was alive. Small things. Subtle things. The kind a wife ignores because she wants peace more than suspicion. I remembered Rachel interrupting whenever David discussed finances with me. I remembered Lucas becoming strangely impatient anytime his father talked about retirement planning. And I remembered one evening 6 months earlier when David stood quietly at the kitchen sink and said, "If anything ever happens to me, don't let people rush you." At the time I thought he meant grief. Now I understood he meant family. That same afternoon, my neighbor Carol stopped by with banana bread wrapped in foil. She hesitated awkwardly near the doorway. Helen. I almost didn't say anything. My stomach tightened. Say what? She lowered her voice. A few weeks before David passed, I saw Lucas and Rachel meeting with a realtor outside your house. The room suddenly felt smaller. They told me they were discussing future investments. Future investments. While David was still alive. That night I sat alone in bed holding David's old flannel shirt against my chest. And for the first time since his death, grief turned into betrayal. 3 days later, Lucas invited me to dinner again. This time, Rachel had printed paperwork neatly stacked beside my plate. I stared at it without touching anything. Senior living brochures. Condominium listings. Moving estimates. Lucas cleared his throat. We think it's time to discuss realistic options. I looked at my son for a long moment. You buried your father 17 days ago. Rachel folded her hands. We're trying to help before things become overwhelming. I noticed she kept saying we, as though they were already making decisions together about my future. Without me. Then Lucas finally said it. The house is too valuable to sit unused. Unused. The home where I raised him. The kitchen where David danced with me every Christmas Eve. The bedroom where I held my husband while he struggled to breathe during his final night. Unused. Something inside me hardened quietly. I'm not selling my home. Lucas's jaw tightened. Rachel smiled too quickly. No one's forcing you. But her eyes said otherwise. The next morning, I drove downtown to meet David's attorney. Martin Reynolds had handled our paperwork for nearly 20 years. When I entered his office, his expression changed immediately. Helen. There was pity in his eyes. And concern. He closed the office door carefully. I was wondering when you'd come see me. My chest tightened. Why would you say that? Martin removed his glasses slowly. Because Lucas has already called 3 times asking about property transfers. I felt heat drain from my face. Martin slid a folder toward me. David updated several protections before he passed. Protections. Inside were trust documents, restrictions, a clause preventing forced sale pressure, and one handwritten note attached by David himself. Helen decides everything. Not later. Not eventually. Immediately. Tears blurred my vision. Even dying, my husband had tried to shield me. Martin looked at me gently. Helen. David knew there might be pressure after his death. For several seconds I couldn't speak. Because suddenly I understood. David had seen this coming. Rachel hosted Easter brunch 2 weeks later. I almost didn't go. But avoiding my family felt too much like surrender. The humiliation arrived quietly. As humiliations usually do. I noticed my casserole sitting untouched while Rachel's dishes were praised repeatedly. I noticed family conversations stopping when I approached. I noticed Lucas introducing me to a neighbor as, my mom. She's having a hard time managing alone these days. Managing alone. As though grief had erased my competence. Later, while carrying plates into the kitchen, I overheard Rachel whispering to her sister. If Helen moves out by summer, we can start renovations before school starts. I nearly dropped the dishes. Moves out. Not if. When. That night, I cried in the garage before driving home because I didn't want them seeing me weak. After Easter, I stopped reacting emotionally around them. That frightened Rachel more than tears would have. I answered calmly, observed quietly, and prepared carefully. Martin helped me review every financial document David left behind. The truth slowly emerged. The house belonged entirely to me. Not Lucas. Not jointly. Me. David had also created a separate trust protecting most of our assets from manipulation or pressure. Lucas clearly didn't know. Rachel definitely didn't. Meanwhile, their behavior worsened. Lucas stopped calling unless he needed information. Rachel began sending me listings for retirement communities. One message included, residents your age usually adjust quickly. Your age. Not your grief. Not your loss. Your age. That was when I realized something devastating. They no longer saw me as family. Only as an obstacle standing between them and the life they wanted. One afternoon, Emma accidentally revealed the truth. My granddaughter sat coloring at the kitchen table while I babysat. Daddy says we're moving into your house after you leave. The crayon slipped from my fingers. I kept my voice gentle. What do you mean, sweetheart? Emma shrugged. Mommy says your room is becoming hers. I smiled for her sake. But inside something collapsed completely. Not because of the house. Because they had already built a future that erased me. That evening I walked slowly through every room of my home. I touched the wallpaper David picked. The banister he refinished himself. The doorway where we measured Lucas's height every birthday. And for the first time I stopped asking whether I was imagining things. I wasn't. The next morning, I made coffee before sunrise and sat alone at the dining table. The same table where Lucas humiliated me after David's funeral. Only now I felt calm. Not numb. Clear. I called Martin. Then I called a contractor. And finally I called Carol. By the end of the week, plans were in motion. Not revenge. Protection. I transferred portions of my estate into charitable trusts. I updated medical directives. And I arranged for the house to pass to Emma one day. Not Lucas. Not Rachel. Emma. Under strict conditions. because I still believed innocence deserved protection, even if adults disappointed me. A month later, I invited Lucas and Rachel over. Rachel arrived smiling. Lucas looked impatient. Martin sat quietly in the living room holding a folder. The moment Rachel saw him, her expression changed. I folded my hands calmly. "You've both spent weeks discussing my future," I said softly. "So I thought it was time we discussed reality." Martin explained everything carefully. The house, the trusts, the protections David created, the legal restrictions, the fact that no one could pressure me into selling anything. Lucas stared at the paperwork. Rachel went pale. Then came the silence. Heavy, humiliating, earned. Finally Lucas whispered, "You thought we were trying to take your house?" I looked directly at him. "You already moved into it in your mind." Neither of them denied it. That hurt more than anything else. Family fractures don't heal neatly. People like to believe emotional betrayals end with apologies and tears. Real life is quieter than that. Lucas called less after that meeting. Rachel stopped pretending warmth. Holiday gatherings became smaller, careful, uncomfortable. Some wounds never fully close. But something important changed inside me. I stopped begging silently to be valued. I stopped shrinking to make other people comfortable. And slowly my home stopped feeling haunted. I planted new flowers in the backyard that spring. I donated David's old jackets to a veteran's shelter, because he would have wanted that. I joined a grief support group downtown. Some nights were still unbearably lonely. Sometimes I still reached toward David's side of the bed before remembering. But I no longer felt invisible. One afternoon Emma sat beside me on the porch swing and asked, "Grandma, are you sad?" I looked out across the yard where sunlight moved softly through the trees. "Yes," I told her honestly. "But sadness isn't the same thing as weakness." She leaned her head against my shoulder. And for the first time in many months the house felt warm again. Not because the betrayal disappeared, but because I survived it with my dignity still intact.